Hello, welcome to the Profit Builder blog. My name is Nikki Suter and I'm your host. And this blog is all about helping you grow, thrive, and prosper in your business and in your life. And the topics we cover is everything from how do you generate more profits to how do you have more time and how do you have more fun from your work. And in today's episode, I want to talk about what are some of the things that I really see a lot of people struggle with these days, particularly when it comes to having great people on their team. And so one of the things that I hear a lot, and just the other day I heard this complaint from a client about, it's really hard to find good people these days. We're really struggling to bring people onto our team and to keep good people. And that it seems like it's really tough to get people to take ownership of their job. Now, you may think like they did that this is because there's a lack of motivation for people, or there's a lack of good work ethic, or that, it's just that there's a shortage out there, which I appreciate. There is a shortage of qualified people, but there are people qualified out there who work in this industry. And I think a more important question for us to ask as business owners and leaders is, am I building the kind of company that people want to work for? So I got to thinking about what would be a good analogy that I could use with contractors and interior designers that would relate to the world that they live in to make this point about what's the real reason that we're not attracting and keeping great people on our team, and what's the real reason why people don't take more ownership and accountability in their jobs. And I got to thinking that, it would be analogous to this. Imagine that somebody comes to you, a homeowner comes to you and says, I want to build a house. I want you to build a house for me. And here's a drawing. Like they've drawn out a house on a piece of paper. And just like, kind of like one of those houses we drew when we were kids, right? And then imagine that you go, well, do you have an architect? Do you have a designer, designing it for you? And they go, no, we don't want to invest all of that time and energy in that. Like, we hired you. You're a contractor. You should know how to do that job. And you built lots of houses, right? You told us that you built a lot of houses. So we have faith in you that you can do this job, and that we've given you a drawing. We told you what we wanted. So, you can figure it out, right? Can you imagine if clients did that? Like, it would be a nightmare if you've ever, we can't build houses without some structure and without some set of plans and design and specifications about what are the measurable criteria for having that house be what the client wants. Well, it's no different for you in your business with your employees, actually. So if you want to build a company that has people that take ownership, that attracts the best of the best to work for you, who are, where you have low turnover, then there's a few things that you can do that can really make all the difference in the world in terms of building a plan and a structure with some measurables that are really going to help you be more successful in building your business, just like you're more successful when you have a good set of plans and a good system and a good measure when you're building a home or renovating a home. Let me just share with you what some of those things are. And really, they're things that you may think that you're already doing. So one of the things that I say is that if you have a position agreement that is based on results and that speaks to specific, measurable, accountable results, then you are going to, and that you have agreement with your employee about, you're going to have a much better chance of having that person be successful and be a hugely valuable and contributing member of your team. And in fact, if you build a culture where people have accountability at that level, where they are held accountable to specific results with specific measurables, you're going to find that you attract even a better quality of person to want to come work with you. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. So a lot of times people say, but I have job descriptions, right? I hired somebody, I gave them the job description, and we already do that. And what I have found in over 25 years of looking at hundreds of job descriptions that people have given me when they say they have a job description, the majority of them are really nothing more than a task list. And so when I say job description, I'm actually talking about something different. I'm talking about a job description that speaks to not only what are the major responsibilities of that job, right? So there may be 5 to 7 major responsibilities. Let's use a project manager as an example. So if I have 5 to 7 major responsibilities for a project manager, it would probably involve things like on time, on budget, as promised, right? So it would have something to do with managing cost, bringing projects in on budget, bringing projects in at the desired gross profit margin that you originally estimated it at. And it would also include things like managing the schedule and making sure that there was schedules updated on a regular basis. It would also include things like projecting cost to complete, managing the client relationship, and managing change orders effectively, and making sure that that process gets followed, right? So those are sort of the fundamentals, if you will, of a project manager. All of those are sort of wide open-ended things that we ask people to do. And what I have found is that job descriptions that have closed-ended, where there's specific and measurable by when results that can be defined and measured by the employee and by you, then what you're going to find is that you have job descriptions that are much more powerful and that allow somebody to be much clearer about how to win the game with you. So using the project manager as an example again, I would have that all change orders are turned around within 24 hours and either signed or resolved with the client within 1 week. If it was schedules, it would be that schedules are updated every Friday with up-to-date milestones and resources needed, including labor. And then let's take cost to complete. So cost to complete is done every month by the 5th of the month. Right? So now it's what it is specifically and by when it needs to be completed. So now when we've got that kind of a job description that speaks more specifically to exactly the results that we want to create, then what I found is that you're going to be able to better manage that person instead of chasing after them, right? Have you ever had that experience where you spend a lot of time chasing after your team to make sure people are getting their jobs done? Super frustrating, right? The way to turn that around is when you have a job description that specifically says, this is the criteria of how we win the game together. Your job, project manager, or whatever the position is, you have this accountability, and that you bring that to me. Every week I get an updated schedule by this time. But that project manager now, instead of you chasing after them to make sure they've got their job done, now what you're doing is you're shifting that to, hey, you're responsible for reporting that back to me. That one little change, well, 2, right? So the first one is the job description goes from being sort of general and open-ended to specific and closed-ended with a what and a by when. And then the second thing is that you're shifting that relationship from one of, did you get it done and chasing after it, to one of holding the project manager or your team member accountable for a specific result. If you do those 2 things, then what you're going to find is that you start to raise up the level of accountability and ownership that people have. Now, here's a really cool thing about that, is that people love to have that sense of what they do matters, that it counts, that they want to have a sense of belonging and a sense of contribution. And really, I don't care who they are. I don't care. It could be the janitor. We all fundamentally as human beings have that desire to want to feel like what we do matters, right? We want to be well compensated, but we want to feel like what we're doing has mattering and that it makes a contribution. And if we don't give people the opportunity to have that chance to really own their own results, they can see the results that they've created and that they are looking at it and taking ownership for it. Man, that's so much more powerful. When you start to do this with your team, what you find, and I've seen this with lots of companies I work with, the whole level of ownership rises to a completely different level. You will find that you will keep people longer because they have a greater sense of belonging in your company. And what you're also going to do is you're going to rise up the level of accountability of people and in your team, and you're going to rise up the level of the kind of person that you attract working with you. I had a client a couple of months ago when I was talking about this. I was talking with someone else, and he was standing there, and he said, listen, he said, I got to tell you, what she's talking about totally works. He said, when we started consistently holding people accountable to a specific result, we had job descriptions that spoke to specific measurable results. What we found is that the level, first of all, our turnover changed. He said our turnover went way down. He said the level of accountability went way up in our organization. He said, and we started to attract a higher caliber of person to come and work for us, because they knew that we were the kind of company to come work for, where people liked to work and people had a sense of like belonging and mattering in the work that they were doing in our organization. And I loved that, because it really speaks to exactly addressing the whole challenge that so many people face today. So if you're looking to build a company where like great people want to come work, and you're looking to build a company where you have low turnover, where you have accountability, where people take ownership of their job, then I recommend that you do this one thing, and that you build job descriptions within your company for every member of your team. Build job descriptions that are specific and measurable, and then have your team be accountable for managing to those results. And you need to set up a structure for that, right? Like you kind of heard me indicate that you have meetings every week to go over the schedule update. You meet once a month to talk about cost to complete. You set up the structure where they report, they own their own result, and they report to you, and they come to you prepared with, hey, here's what happened. This is also going to shift you from chasing after information to being one of, okay, I'm now looking at like what's working, what's not working, but I'm engaging with my team at a completely different level. So I hope you found this to be helpful. One of the things that I've included in here as maybe a tool to help you out is my procedure for writing position agreements. And that procedure can actually walk you through and give you some prompts and really help you in your process of writing position agreements for your team. So until next time, I hope that this information has been helpful in supporting you in growing, thriving, and prospering.